Welcome to this session on network security and forensics. We will now show a small demo configuration of firewall. So, what we have done is we have actually got a setup of two machines running on a Oracle virtual VM. So, we have got one Ubuntu 14 that is running, okay, and this is internally connected to a Kali Linux machine with the IP address for this Kali Linux machine is 192.168.0.5 and the IP address for our Ubuntu machine is, as you can see, is 192.168.0.6. So, what we are able to do right now is I can do a ping to find out whether the Kali machine is in the network. So, I try 192.168.0.5. So, I am able to ping this machine. Okay. Similarly, I will also try to ping from the Kali machine to this machine. So, if you look at this ping 192.168.0.6. So, this shows that these two machines are connected to each other. Okay. Now, what we will do is we will have to now find out, or we will explain how to install IP tables. Now, we have already installed these IP tables in this machine, but then this is the step that we have to do. The first thing you need to be very careful is, if you are logged in as root into your Ubuntu machine, please do not go ahead and use the same login to install firewalls, because if you get blocked and there is a problem, I mean you will not be able to recover unless you put, there are other ways of recovering, but it is a long process. So, do not go into that problem. You have to create a root user with special root permissions. So, this is the way to create the root user with permissions. Okay, if it is a Ubuntu machine, then you put a su minus and then you give the password, whatever password you have given to the machine. So, you become a root user. Then you can use this something known as add user. See, and I have already added this user. So, you do not have to worry about it, at least in the demo. And then what you have to do is, the next line says that this root user, whatever user you have created, okay, must be added as a sudo user, I mean, so that he gets all the permissions. Okay. Then you can actually install IP tables. Okay. So, you can use the command sudo apt-get update, and then you can get install IP tables persistent. Okay. So, once you do that, okay, so in my case I have already installed it. So, it says otherwise it goes and you should be connected to the internet, of course. So, then it goes and gets all the packages and then gets installed. The next step that you have to do is, you have to look at the rules that are there. Okay. So, for this what you do is, you can go to, the rules are actually given in two places. Okay. One is I can just do edit of the rules. So, etc/IP tables rules dot, this is for v4 IPv4. So, these are all the bunch of rules that you have for IPv4. As I told you, there is this filter, okay, then what to do, input drop and all those things. So, if you look at this configuration file, it has bunch of rules, okay, and what we could do is, we could add, I mean in this demo I am just going to add one rule. Okay, here is the rule that I have added, that if I send out from my Ubuntu machine, okay, an ICMP packet, and if the packet is of echo request, then the rule says that do not send the packet, just drop it. Okay, it is a very simple rule. There are other ways, for example, there is a NAT table, here is a security table, you can have a raw packet table, etc., etc., etc. But I blocked all of these just for the demo purposes. Okay. If you actually install it, you will get bunch of rules, okay, how to do track the connections and all those things. So, let us not complicate, I mean as initially it is a very simple rule, okay, to block someone to ping from my machine to the other machine. Only thing I have to check is that, okay, so here is the rule, okay, minus a output, minus p ICMP type echo request, minus j drop. So, okay. So, if you look at the rule right now, I am able to ping the other machine. Okay. So, if I do a ping .168.0.5, I am able to ping the other machine. Okay. So, similarly, okay, you also have rules for IPv6. So, you can also edit the IPv6 rules. okay, and currently I mean it just drops all the IPv6 packets. So, if you look at the drop, so we are not interested in any IPv6 traffic right now. So, we are not doing anything with the IPv6 traffic. Okay. Now, let us one of the things is, once you actually write the rules, new rules, you can actually test the rules. Okay. So, that there is no syntax error. So, here is the command that we can do. I mean, just to ensure that the demo goes very fast, I was just cutting and pasting this command. So, otherwise you might have to type it. So, if it says that, okay, so everything is fine, the rules, there is no syntax error or things like that in the rules. Okay. Now, what I will do is, I will just go ahead and what I can do is, I can just go ahead and load the rules. Okay. So, here is what I do. Okay. Now, it is loaded the rules, okay. And if you want to see what rules I have loaded for IPv4, I can look at tables minus S. So, it says that I have added one rule which says to drop ICMP packets, okay. And if you see IPv6, what are all the rules that I have added, it just tells you that, okay, everything, okay, any IP input packet you just have to drop it. Okay, IPv6 packet you have to drop it. So, what will happen? So, what we expect to happen is that, so we have been doing a ping and we have told the IPv6 to stop doing any ping. So, let us try to do a ping and see what happens. So, it clearly says that the operation is not permitted, which means our packet is getting filtered. Okay. Now, I will flush the rule. See, what I can do is just to show you that our rule is working. Let me go ahead and flush these rules and let us see what happens. Okay. So, flushing, the flushing means I am removing the rules, okay. And what I now I will do a ping again. Now, the packets are going through straight away. So, this is exactly what IP tables can do. And if you want to see one of the things, the next question that you might ask, so sir, but here if you see the ping has been consistently going on, that means we are only blocking the output packets. The input packets that are sent by the root does not get affected, because we have not put a filter on the input chain, we have only put the filter on the output chain. So, if you just want to try out, just if you, so now let us go ahead and reload the rules. Okay. You can even say IP table service I will start, and so it has now reloaded the rules. Now, if you see the operation is not permitted. Okay. So, what I can do right now, so if I want to find out what are all the rules that are there, IP tables minus S, so it tells you this drop rule is there. So, if you just convert it into input, you can actually drop the ping, I mean you will not be able to respond to the ping of the input. So, this is very simple, okay, and straightforward way of getting this IP tables working, and there are very many complications, okay. Yes, but I think this will tell you how to get a simple firewall working in your machine. So, now let us continue with what we have been discussing, okay, and what we have been discussing is that how to place these rules. So, this is exactly what we were discussing in the previous session. So, how we are planning to place these rules, and we just had one rule, therefore, we placed it before we just after the in the filter class, in the filter table, and we were able to filter it. You can actually have more than see, we were having only one chain, the input chain, the output chain, and the forward chain. Okay. So, you can actually define your own chains. Okay. So, here is an example. So, what I do is, here I add something known as external input. Okay. I jump to a chain called rules called external input, and in the external rule input I jump to something known as DNS server, and in the DNS server I put some more rules. So, this is the way I can create user defined chains. So, previously what was happening was that, okay, on the output, okay, in our example on the output. So, let us go back to our example and then see what we were doing. Okay. So, in Ubuntu VirtualBox, so we were putting it on the output, okay, we just use the rule called drop. Okay. Instead of using this rule called drop, I can actually define my own chain. Okay, that is exactly what we have done. So, in this case what we have done is this J, if you look at this, instead of dropping the packet, we are tying it up with an external rule. So, once we tie it up with this rule, okay, this rule starts executing. and after this rule we just go to this chain and we start executing this chain and so on. So in this way I will be able to configure more and more rules to make this work. Okay. So I hope this gives you a very brief introduction. Okay, where do we apply this kind of firewall? See, you can have complex network environments where one network does not want to talk to the other network. I mean, one way is to subnet the process, but even if you do subnetting, if I change the network IP address or if I spoof the IP address, I will be able to talk to the other person. Okay. So, these things can be avoided by using a firewall. Okay, and it essentially ensures that you can break your you can segregate your networks. Okay. Then there are these volatile environments, then it is essentially for internal security. Okay. And the environments that change where some places you do not want to change. Say for example, many organizations will change their IP address quite frequently, internal IP addresses, okay, sometimes, because they do not want someone to be with the same static IP address for a long time, because you could actually, they could be the vulnerable points in your network. As I told you, we can do system segregation. So, you can have partitions so that the two partitions do not talk with each other. Major three partitions with firewall, as you know, is the demilitarized zone, the input and the output networks, and you can also protect the local host. For example, in our case actually we are more interested in protecting the local host by blocking all the ICMP packets rather than opening up the host. One of the things that we should know is that, especially with respect to security, okay, is when you are using firewalls, okay, you should be very aware of what is the system that you are using. You should not get blocked by your own system by using certain rules. I mean, if you apply the rules just for the rules sake, like what we do in India, you will land up with a lot of trouble. Okay. So, because the rules are created for a particular purpose, and you should look at whether you are achieving the purpose rather than looking into the rules. Okay. Alone, that is very sacred. Okay. The intention behind the rules is what we are supposed to look. Okay. So, here is something known as principle of least privilege. It tells you that never open up access to all the people all the time and make them very independent. Okay. So, you should only give the information or the packets that a user wants. Okay. It should be least privilege, and if someone wants to get a higher privilege, it is better they actually apply for it and get it. Okay. The second thing that the third thing that you should know is that, okay, you should do defense in depth. Okay. So, it is not a question of just blocking the packets, you should also try to log packets, okay, and then try to analyze. If you find something fishy, okay, it is better you go to the depth of it rather than, say for example, many times what happens is that we are covered by some kind of an insurance. Okay. So, for example, let us say you have an accident insurance policy. It is true that, okay, many insurance policies say that you can have n number of accidents and still your insurance will be paid, and you do not feel happy about it. For example, I have a car, okay, and I can have some n number of claims within a year. It does not mean that I should bang everyone and then make the claim again and again and again. For example, if someone comes and hits my car more than once or twice or thrice, then actually there is a suspicion that either you are not driving well or you have a bad luck in your life. So, you have to go in depth and find out, okay, whether there is a problem with your driving or I mean the fate is that your car, you are not lucky with your car. Okay. So, that is known as, so whenever there is a symptom, just go to the root cause, just leave the symptoms as it is and then cure the symptoms to say that, okay, I am very happy about it. Similarly, in this kind of firewall configuration, protection must be the key. Okay. So, that is why you have to go to defense in depth. Okay. So, once you are able to protect the network, you actually come out of a lot of hassles. Okay. If you are not going to protect your network, you are going to be in deep trouble, because once an incident has happened, okay, then okay, you have to spend a lot of time identifying why the incident has happened. B, you have to ensure that that incident does not repeat again. Okay. So, being proactive is the key here. Okay. So, by protection you are being proactive. Okay. Once I am breached, okay, definitely no one's PC is safe, as I told at the beginning of this network security session, everyone's PC is vulnerable. But the question is, if you are attacked, are you able to detect why you have been attacked? Okay. And you should also detect who has attacked you. Okay. So, this is what we are supposed to do with the help of firewalls. Okay. There are a lot of features in firewalls other than what we have discussed, because this is sort of a overall course on network security. We have just introduced this concept of firewalls, how to actually configure it. There is much more to this. So, please go ahead and spend some time reading about firewalls, intrusion detection and prevention system. So, what are all the good rules that someone must follow? So, the first thing that you should do is avoid locking yourself. Okay. So, these are some of the good practices that you would like to follow. Please be hands on, try more rules, as we had discussed in the class, try more rules with your firewalls, okay, and see how the firewalls work. Thank you very much. Welcome to this session on network security and forensics. So, we were looking at how to install firewalls, how to work with firewall rules, what are the rules, and how do you ensure that you use the firewalls in a nice manner to protect your organization as well as detect any issues that might come up. Okay. Now, we will look at some of the good practices, and we will also spend a few minutes on what are the different types of logs that one could get, and why we should write Unix scripts, base scripts continuously to keep us updated, because the whole job of collecting the logs and doing the forensics, as we had seen earlier, is extremely difficult. Unless you automate it and you have a bunch of tools, you are going to find it difficult to solve any problem. Okay. So, the most important thing that you should do is to avoid locking yourself, okay, when you are using these kind of tools like firewalls and intrusion detection systems, etc. First thing you do is always take a backup of your IP tables configuration before you ever start working on it. I think we did that in our previous demo, but not during the IP tables demo. Okay. So, we just wanted to caution you that the second time that we used, we never took any backup, we just went ahead and modified the tables just like that. Whereas in Snort demo, actually we made a copy of it and then used the copy, if you remember correctly. The other things that you should do is always save the IP tables or your configuration with the timestamp, because you should use the latest, I mean your latest configuration file should be available if in case you face any problem. Okay. And if you do something that prevents your system from working, you can quickly restore it. So, you can restore it to this particular date, okay, etc. And make a copy of this and store it separately. Do not store it in the same machine, because if your machine gets attacked, okay, you would lose this configuration. It is better you have a backup of the configuration somewhere. Put specific rules at the top of the policy and generic rules at the bottom, and actually I think we discussed this a lot in the previous session. Okay. The more criteria you specify in the rule, the less chance you will have a locking of yourself out. Okay. So, you need to be so because if you make very specific rules, okay, the chance that that specific rule will be applied is very less. Okay. So, you could use some other, for example, I am blocking a specific port, then I could as well, if I get blocked, then I could as well reconfigure it to some other port and then enter the machine. Okay. So, that is what we mean. Okay. So, the whitelist your IP address at the top of your policy rules. Whitelist tells you that, okay, yes, this is allowed. So, your IP address should be allowed for any activity. Okay. For example, your machine, your laptop must be allowed for any activity to configure in the firewall or some other place, and all other IP address with for administrative privileges should be blocked. So, you can bring a rule which says that, okay, so only if I log in from my network, you will get administrative privileges. If you or log in from my laptop, you will get administrative privilege. Always have a backup laptop also, I mean, for logging in. Okay. You need to put this, that accepting your IP address as the first rule in your file. Okay. So, minus I inserts the rule, if you remember we had put it, and minus A appends the rule. All these rules must be generated based on your organizational policy. Okay. So, this is true for Snort, this is true for firewalls. Okay. You should not introduce any rules which is not there in the policy, and if the policy does not sufficiently cover the security, then escalate it and get it covered, rather than introducing your own rules which does not stick to your policy. Okay. Because there could be legal implications if you do that. And getting the rules, say every time you configure the rules, remember we gave you a command for checking the rules. Okay. Please use that command, check that there is no syntax error in the rules and then apply the rule, because we usually have this option of, I think I mentioned earlier also, that if step 2 does not work, we always go to step 3 and then try to see whether step 3 works instead of step 2 working. Now, that should be avoided when you configure these kind of firewalls. Okay. And other thing is, please understand what is the rule chain. Okay. It is better you have a flow chart. Okay. It is like a programming language. So, even if you take Snort or if you take this IP tables, it is what you specify as rules is a sort of programming language. And remember, programming languages and programming, you do it for others, not for yourself. Okay. So, if you are not there, will the other person be able to understand these whatever rules you have written? Okay. That should be priority in mind, rather than, okay, I am a brilliant guy, I got a great rule and nobody else can understand what my rule is. So, that does not work in this kind of scenarios, especially in the area of security. Okay. The other thing is, you have to match the policy with the rule. Okay. So, sometimes what happens is, what the policy does and what is supposed to do can be two different things. Okay. So, this is exactly what I was telling you. Even if you have a rule, see the intention behind the rule, not the rule by itself. So, here is an example, okay, of, so your employees are, you know that your employees are spending too much of time on Facebook and not getting their work done. So, you want to block access to Facebook. Okay. So, this is an example of how I can block access to Facebook. Okay. So, here it says host -t www.facebook.com. So, it says that Facebook is an alias for star.cr10. So, it is an IP address of 31.13.65.17, who is, so get inet num. Okay. So, it has a bunch of numbers. So, what you can do is, you can go ahead and block this whole set of stuff, okay, and ensure that your Facebook is blocked for the organization. Okay. Well, many times people will log into some other public IP server and then log into Facebook. Okay. So, this will be the challenge, always a challenge for a network security specialist as an administrator. Okay. The more smart you try to become, users will become much more smarter than you. So, it is a kind of a rat race that you have to live with, and this is where it is very challenging. So, here is the other way of blocking. So, you can just tell your organization that I am going to block it between this time and this time. So, only between 12 and 1, only suppose, say, let us say during lunch hour, I can open up Facebook access and not for the rest of the time. So, here is a small example. Sometimes, for example, some organizations will tell you that overall, okay, you can access only 10 minutes of your time, you can go to Gmail and then log in. So, those kind of rules can be framed using firewalls. Okay. So, here is an example, drop all TCP UDP direct during service hours between 2 and 3, that is for maintenance tasks which should not be disrupted by incoming traffic. So, sometimes if you remember, the net will be down, that is what people will say. Now, how do you make the net down? I mean, you can either hardwire and pull all the wires out, or you can use a firewall which tells you that between this time and this time, no network traffic should be allowed inside my network, so that I drop every packet and you do the task whatever you want to do, then restore the traffic. So, this is another way of using the firewall. So, we saw 3 different examples, okay, of using the firewall and the rules. You can also have one more. Okay. So, you suspect that there is a DOS attack that is happening on your web server. So, how do I block it? So, here is a rule that can block the DOS attack. So, here is a example of a rule. I mean, try to interpret this rule. Okay. So, it says something like connection limit about 20. Okay. Then you go ahead and reject it, okay, and then reject it with a TCP reset. So, and what is the connection limit, and then etc. So, the idea is that, so here you can use your firewall to block the DOS attack. So, remember we had a rate limiting of, the other way is you can even do a rate limit here. There are many options available. This is exactly what we are telling. So, what is the policy? Based on that you have to apply the rule. Okay. Either you rate limit, or if it goes beyond, you just reject it. So, these are all choices that are available to you. So, how you configure, what you configure depends on your organization's policy. Here is the other example. You can draw incoming packets if the IP address makes more than 10 connections to port 443 in 100 seconds. So, it is like there is heavy traffic. Okay. How do I ensure that a lot of people do not come in and then use my resources? Okay. So, here is an example of if you have more than 10 connections within 100 seconds, I can just drop the packets. These are all the ways in which you can use your firewall. Before we conclude this session, okay, I would like to briefly explain to you about log management, because all the time we have been looking at and relying on logs. Okay. There are various logs that are available. Okay. What is the importance of log? Okay, it provides performance issues, application function problems, it identifies application function problems, intrusion detection, and attack attempts, etc. Okay. And we are not going to get, as you had seen, we are not going to get one log, unless you use a master log server where everything gets logged to that particular server. We are not proceeding that fashion. So, as a forensic investigator, you have to get all the logs that are available and then combine them together and then to draw the event on the timelines. Okay. So, essentially what is important is the timeline. So, here the logs provide vital inputs for managing computer security incidences, both for incident prevention and incident response benefits. Okay. When responding to computer security incident, logs actually leads the activities performed over the system. We saw an example of it. We also mentioned that you are supposed to use, you can even buy commercial tools to look into this to make your life easier. Okay. So, the logs actually facilitates cyber crime investigation. It helps you to determine what activities happened and what are the origins of attack, etc. Here are the log sources that we had looked at. We had looked at system logs. We will just briefly explain about system logs. Okay. Especially the syslog file of Linux or Unix. Okay. Then you can also have your application log. We knew how to give logs for firewall, then we saw some examples of firewall logs, we saw some examples of IDS and IPS logs. Application logs will include web server, mail server and database server. See, there are various log formats. Okay. Usually the format will be like, it will have a timestamp. Okay. Say for example, the following the one that is shown here is an example of a NCSA log, which is provided by a web server kind of. Okay. It is known as the common log format, NCSA common log format. It tells you the IP address and then the user identifier and who is the user and then what time the user has tried to do something. Then it tells you the what is the request that he got, what is the error message that was sent and what is the size of the packets that he received. Okay. So, this kind of log will have structured format in many of those things. So, that makes life easy for us to parse and for example, sed using commands like sed and all those things. If you remember, we use that in your snort to comment out a bunch of rules. Okay. So, so you could have these kind of, the log formats could be in various formats. So, you might have to use some kind of parser or which we had discussed. That is why we actually had a session on shell. Okay. You might have to use that kind of a parser to log these, but most important thing is they will all have timestamps. Okay. And they must be configured to have timestamps. The Windows OS might provide you security logs. Okay. Like valid and invalid login attempts, okay, resource usage such as creating a file, opening a file, deleting a file and other objects. Then it could have applications logs such as the events that are logged by the applications. Okay. But many of the application logs usually they have some 7 information levels and you can actually tune the application to dump what kind of information you want to have. Okay. Then there are the system logs, okay, whether the drivers are functioning okay, whether your system has those drivers, etc. With respect to application server logs, you could have error logs and web server logs, then mail server, FTP server, database server. So, all these logs have to be parsed through. So, you should have some sort of a script which can pass through all the logs. Okay. Use tools like grep, awk, sed and then get the required requisite information that you need from these kind of logs. So, what are the challenges in this kind of log file management or network forensics? Sometimes you may not have proper logs available or the logs may not have been audited. Okay. Or remember, if you have read rate access to all the logs, then someone could have inserted the data. So, it may not be acceptable as a forensic evidence if your log permissions is not okay. Okay. So, that is something. Then there have been cases where you have copied the logs, and while going to the court of law, I mean when you put it in front of the judge, nothing works. So, this could be poor management of log, like you copy, but you do not test whether your copy is okay or not. So, these are all simple things, okay, which can cost something in terms of network forensics. But in case the logs are available, okay, then you have other set of problems. What is the volume of data you are supposed to carry, okay, and how are you going to store it safely, and I mean what if a particular version of the OS is not available. For example, DOS file format, take it, okay, there will be a control M at the end, okay, when you load it on Unix, okay, so there will be always be a control M that comes at the end of every line. Now this looks odd, okay. So, for a technical person, yes, you can answer, but suppose let us say a person is not technical and he is the person who is making a judgment on whether the case is right or not. When he sees a control M, say this is something new, so you have created it. So, these kind of stuff can happen. Here are some examples of how event IDs could help to identify. So, here are things, say let us say event ID 529, 530, 31, 32. So, that means you are supposed to classify the logs and identify what is correct, what has gone wrong, okay, and things like it. So, it is better you prepare something like this, okay. So, these are all the local login attempt failures, these are all the misuse attempts, these are all the logout attempts, okay, and then you write a report on all these things. I mean, if you remember, many of the security people, they note down what vehicle is going, what vehicle is coming back. So, these kind of log at the end of the day, it is better a network security administrator keeps, so that tomorrow in terms of any forensics, this will help. Here is another example, okay. You can have a very detailed discussion of the slides that is given there, okay. It is one of the wonderful set of sites by cert.in, okay, and they have given more on this log file management. Most important thing is the Unix syslog, okay, a comprehensive logging system used to manage the information generated by the kernel and system utilities. Okay, even when I write an application, I can take the syslog service and then I can merge myself into the syslog service. Okay, it's a syslog is a daemon, syslog D is a daemon that is running. I can attach my process to the syslog daemon. So, whenever I want to give some messages, okay, the syslogs will take care of logging it in a proper format. Okay. So, when you are developing an application programming in Unix, try to use Unix syslog. So, here is an example of a syslog. So, it tells you that what timestamp, okay, at what terminal, what is the application name that tried to access, and then why it failed, etc. Okay. It's because it failed because it is not a directory. So, here are some references, okay, for whatever sessions that we have done. Okay. If you look at this, we are not endorsing everything, but these are all something great to have. Okay. So, for IP tables, for example, you can go to netfilter.org to download the latest IP tables and have a look at the manuals there. Okay. So, here is the real time IP tables monitor. Okay. You can go to that particular website and then see what is there. Then sourceforge.net has firewall report. Essentially, these things will make your life much more easier to work with. I hope you enjoyed the session on network security and forensics. So, as a concluding note, okay, so we will say that there is a lot to learn in this field. Okay. Not only should be the forensics person adept in solving problems, you should also understand how a network should be configured. So, for example, why should as a forensic person learn about SNOT and IP tables. Okay. So, one, yes, when you go for forensics, you will know what data to collect, okay, and if other person does not know, you can teach them. Second, you can, when you submit the forensic audit report, you can also say that an organization should have gone in for these kind of changes, okay, and that is very important. So, unless I mean that is telling the organization how to prevent the attacks, okay. So, and then unless you know the tools, you will not be able to prepare such a report. So, if you want to prepare a comprehensive report on not only why the attack has happened, but also how to prevent it, the knowledge of use of these kind of tools is very essential. And that is why we introduced some of these tools during the course. Hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you very much.